your opinion, what emerging technology solutions have had the biggest impact on the construction and engineering space today?
We've been talking about BIM for a long time in the industry, and 3D, 4D, and 5D project delivery. I think with the advancements in technology for ease of use and ease of adoption that we're seeing now, and also just the huge uptake across the globe in visualization and project deliveries is huge. And so three-dimensional models and
Did you know that construction projects lose billions each year due to inefficiencies, yet the right digital tools can dramatically shift those outcomes? In this episode, I'm joined by Ryan Kunisch, Vice President of Global Product for Oracle Construction and Engineering, to discuss emerging technologies like cloud platforms and AI that are reshaping how projects are delivered. We'll also talk about how these solutions help project managers reduce costs through smarter resource allocation, sharpen their skills with data-driven insights, and overcome resistance when adopting new digital tools. If you're looking to stay ahead of industry trends and deliver stronger project outcomes, this conversation will give you practical strategies and a clear view of what's next. Before we jump in, I want to tell you about our AEC PM Connect event, built for project managers who want to improve project delivery, communication, and leadership through practical sessions and tools. These events provide an avenue to connect with leading PMs in the industry. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. We currently have events in Kansas City and New Jersey, with more coming. I'm your host, Fiona Johan, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump right in. It's now time for our PM Conversation of the Week with Ryan Kunisch. Ryan, welcome to the Engineering Project Management Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to start off and ask you to just share a bit about yourself and the journey that led you to your current role as the Vice President of Global Product for Oracle Construction and Engineering.
Yeah, great. I always like to say that I failed in my first career endeavor. So I'm from Colorado. I wanted to be a ski bum. I ended up becoming an accountant early on in my career and spent the first half of my career in mergers and acquisitions and financial analysis. But about 12 years ago, I joined Trimble Navigation and really got some insights into this industry and fell in love with it. I started off in the civil construction technology, everything from machine control, site positioning systems, and civil software, and then became involved with general contracting solutions. I did a few years in startup with a company called Assigner that really helped automate operations for the trades. And then I came over to Oracle about 5 years ago now, and started working with the Oracle team and the portfolio here. And we've got a large portfolio that serves over 133 countries and solutions that span from planning through execution and the payments. So it's been a great journey. Seen a lot of growth in the industry, and really happy, to be part of it.
That's a great adventure. I love when people don't have the expected path. I think it shows that you can always,
You never
there's
know.
a
That's
million
right.
different things you can do and you never know where you'll end up.
That's
An
exactly right.
important life lesson. So, leaning into what you specialize in now. So, in your opinion, what emerging technology solutions have had the biggest impact on the construction and engineering space today?
Yeah, look, I don't think we can have a discussion about technology these days without talking about AI. And I think, in terms of its impact, I think we're just at the beginning of it. So obviously, AI assistants and agents that can help summarize data, provide efficiencies to workloads. It's already impacting our industry, and I think it's going to be revolutionary. But certainly, growing technologies over the last few years, the advancements in reality capture and computer vision, and kind of my former life in LiDAR and drones, really bridging that physical world to digital. Because at the end of the day, we're building real things, and so I think capturing what's happening in the real world and bringing that into the digital world to create efficiencies is really huge. And a really big part of that, and maybe the third thing that stands out for me, is we've been talking about BIM for a long time in the industry, and 3D, 4D, and 5D project delivery. I think with the advancements in technology for ease of use and ease of adoption that we're seeing now, and also just the huge uptake across the globe across small contractors all the way up to very large capital project owners. I think visualization in project deliveries is huge. And so three-dimensional models and integrating that with cost and schedule is just revolutionary for our industry.
Strong leadership drives strong projects. Become an AEC PM professional and give your team the leadership skills they need to thrive. Customized PM development, premium content, and a leadership edge that sets you apart. Learn more at aecpm.com.
Along those lines, how do you think Oracle's technology portfolio helps project managers specifically keep projects on schedule and monitor their performance in real time and manage risks proactively?
Yeah, so three things that we try to focus on as core to our strategy is first one is connecting teams. Second one is empowering individuals within those teams. And then the third one is synchronizing activities across those teams and across the project delivery stakeholders. And all of that really centers around for us as Oracle, right? If you think of Oracle Corporate, we really hinge on the power of data and allowing our customers to really take advantage of the power of data. And so for us, what that means is eliminating the silos of data across the delivery teams with respect to scope, schedule, and budget, eliminating duplicate data that happens across all of the stakeholders, whether it be the architecture firm, the engineering firms, the general contractors, or the trades, really trying to eliminate data duplication, or what we call as data loss or loss of fidelity of data. So really keeping the richness of that data in the delivery chain. And then as you think about the evolution of our industry, we really are striving to get our customers what we call down the data journey. So a lot of our companies have reporting capabilities that, out of your accounting system or out of your operational systems. We call those descriptive or reflective data uses. And we want to move customers towards a journey of holistic and diagnostic so they can see what's going on and make changes. But ultimately, especially with the use of AI in the future, we want to get customers to this predictive and prescriptive space in their data journey so that they can start to anticipate issues in their project delivery, anticipate supply chain issues and other things that may really interrupt project delivery, disrupt the profitability and the longevity, of the project or even their company.
So you started to get into this a little bit. So what ways can technology adoption directly reduce project costs through better resource allocation and waste reduction and even more accurate budgeting? I think you headed there, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned before, it is all about the data, right? So, better resource allocation means that you have the right people at the right time on the right activities. And so through technology solutions like what we have here at Oracle, we provide customers with that level of visibility. So Oracle's really well known for Primavera scheduling. We're used on everything from small projects to mega projects around the globe. We have the ability to handle very large, complex schedules. And what's important with that is, as you get these complex delivery models, you have very complex supply chains and they're dynamic. So I always bring this back to when you think about business automation generally. I'm going to get really philosophical here for a second. In the 70s, we had manufacturing that really advanced, right? So you had companies like Siemens and SAP who connected the factory floor automation to the accounting systems, and we call that ERP. That allowed for high efficiency in product manufacturing. Well, the difference between manufacturing and capital and construction projects is in manufacturing, the factory stays put and all the means of production, all the materials, and the workers stay in one location and the products move through the system. Well, in capital and construction projects, the factory moves and the product is the thing that stays put. So from every project that our customers work on, they essentially have to reassemble the factory every time. So it's really critical that in that dynamic state that you have really good visibility to your resources, to your cost, and to the scope that you're delivering. And so with accuracy of data, the integration of that data, it does facilitate that faster decision making. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, our customers are there to make money and pay their employees and get the job done right. And so that flows down to then making better decisions with the allocation of resources, whether it's the paychecks that they're paying on the job site or the materials that they're procuring and implementing on the job site. So I really feel like what we're doing overall is creating that dynamic full ERP for capital and construction projects.
That all sounds wonderful. Can you give me a real world example of this, transforming for a customer their operations using Oracle's platform? Like what was there before and after and the story or the
Yeah.
results?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll go. We have a customer called Atlas Salt. They're Canadian mining in the mining industry, and they went through some rapid change and decided that we've talked about this here. So in terms of managing scope, managing their schedule, and managing their costs, they went all in and purchased three products from us and integrated those together. So Oracle AConnect, Oracle Primavera Cloud, and NetSuite. And what they're doing is bringing together all of those systems, all hosted systems, to get visibility from beginning to end of their projects. And so they recently implemented that, and they're already seeing projected timeline decreases, based off of some of their very large projects in the feasibility studies, because they have access to that data. And so we have, numerous customers around the globe that see the same thing, whether it's Oracle products or other solutions in this space. The advancements, they're generating real returns for our customers, and integrating those solutions has been really the key for them.
That all sounds wonderful. And I think you've really hit upon, what you can do for the company at large. And I wonder for our listeners, some, are looking at their own professional journey as a project manager. How can this technical support the professional growth of project managers through simulations and insights and advanced reporting dashboards?
Yeah, I like to map it to flying an airplane, or a large commercial airliner. So I've said this before to my own team that in stressful situations, whether it's the end of the quarter, the end of the fiscal year, or we've got a project that's just going sideways on us. If we were the pilot of a large airliner, we would pull every lever before we would ultimately face some severe consequences. But what do pilots do to train, right? So they have flight simulators where it's low risk, but they're able to they're able to get almost real world experience now with some of the advancements in flight simulators. I think that the construction technology can offer the same type of what if scenario analysis for our PMs before they're even on the job site, or even furthermore, as they're working on real job sites, it gives them the ability to, as you mentioned, do scenario analysis, what if, change some dials, pull those levers in the cockpit and see what's going to happen, or at least get a better idea of what's going to happen. But I also think more importantly, like some of the really great flight schools, there is a system of record there. So they can look at past performance and learn from that. So they have a deeper level of diagnostics now than they've ever had before. And they can say on their next project, well, this is like that last project, or it's different from that last project. And we can go to empirical data. We can go to the analysis that we've had, and then use the learnings, either the successes or failures from prior projects, and either within the system, create those benchmarks, or even just in terms of a study. For me personally, I can see my performance, I can see the decisions that I've made and the outcomes that actually happened, and apply those to all the future projects that I have.
It sounds like a double win, a safe space to play and learn, and also a
That's
tool
right.
to use to build yourself and look back and reflect.
That's right. And our customers typically have very small tolerance for error, right? Slim margins in this industry. And so, although it's not the same consequences as making a mistake in flying a commercial airliner, I think sometimes it feels like that for a lot of the PMs on the job site.
Absolutely. And so as a project manager myself, I know that if I come up with, I show up with a new technology that I've been told to implement, sometimes there's a little resistance. Change is hard, especially on some project management teams. What have you found to be some key factors in overcoming that resistance and in driving successful adoption of a new tool?
Yeah, I think I've worked, as I mentioned, about 12 years in engineering construction. Prior to that, I was in healthcare supply chain and utility software. And when you talk to some of the large consulting firms, I kind of borrow from them in terms of how do you get value out of solutions, right? And and really, I think a lot of the times our customers are saying, well, there's all of these software tools available to me, whether they're accounting or project management software or payment solutions. We just need to get those, and that will fix the problem that we have. But in reality, I think, if you've learned that lesson before or had a really hard go at implementing some of these solutions, you need to first identify the real pain. And I think that takes work of collaborating with your stakeholders, being really honest and reflective about, where your company is at in terms of its processes. But then once you've kind of analyzed that, I think you need to have a plan, and it needs to have measurable goals to address that pain. So validate the pain, have a plan, measure, what does good look like and what are we trying to achieve? And then, as I mentioned, look at your processes, document those processes, and figure out what changes need to be made in the process, absent the software many times. But then use the software to automate the better process. And then when you're implementing, you know, there are some solutions that you can't avoid this, or that are more easily rolled out in mass. But really, I always recommend start with a proof of concept, right? Get your feet wet first, figure out what works and doesn't work. There's a lot of change coming, and start with a proof of concept team maybe, or start on one project and maybe not all of your projects at the same time. But then once you've learned, then you internalize that and make that part of your culture. So, this is, it's a tool just like any others that you would use on the job site. Leverage it to your advantage, look for the return on investment, make it part of the culture. And then I think you'll see it grow and spread, and it becomes part of your day to day.
I think that's all really important that implementing it strategically always feels like a hit or miss moment on how your new
Yeah. Yeah.
technology is going to
Yeah.
go.
We've all heard this. Yeah. We've all heard the nightmare stories, right?
Right.
That's right.
Let's not be those nightmare stories. It's-
Yeah, exactly.
Along those lines, what future technology trends should like project managers individually pay close attention to in order to stay competitive and deliver stronger project outcomes?
Yeah, look, I think I'll call back to, some of the trends that I identified earlier. But one of the things that, at Oracle, if you're looking at Wall Street Journal in a given day, right, we're as a company right in the middle of the AI evolution, right? So we're providing infrastructure for a lot of the big AI providers, but we're implementing it in our technology as well. So obviously, as I mentioned, we can't have a discussion these days around technology without talking about AI. But if you think back, over time, there's always been these technology disruptors. So future trend, if I'm a PM, and look, this goes for our software developers, this goes for PMs on a job site. We start to think, well, how much of this is going to automate me out of my job, right? I always look at this in the continuum. I call this like the data continuum, right? So on in the simplest form, you have data, and with more context, that data becomes some information. And with more context, the information becomes knowledge. And then ultimately it's wisdom. So that spectrum. So I think all of these tools are moving our teams, right? PM in the field, the men and women get their gloves and their boots dirty, all the way to the back office, supporting teams. I think it moves them from knowledge workers to wisdom workers, meaning that we're able to bring more information into the hands of the people who need to accomplish the task. But it still requires their wisdom to implement that knowledge, right? So, especially in our industry, means and methods is everything on the job site. And you can have all of the best data, but when you're swinging the hammer, or you've got, the torch in your hand, or you're driving the excavator, ultimately there's the real world. There's dirt and steel and, utilities underground. And so how can we use these tools and apply our wisdom as experts in this field to accelerate our efficiency? And so the trends you should look for are, the autonomous workflows, the reality capture and 3D modeling. to move you from a knowledge worker to a wisdom worker, make you more efficient, make you safer, make you more productive as a worker. But also, I think there's some other emerging trends, right? So with all of this data going everywhere, I think there's going to be a higher expectation on our ability to meet compliance requirements. So whether that's environmental requirements, government regulatory requirements, right? There are a lot more measures on the job site. So I would be, looking to say, how are we documenting our work? How are we interacting with those compliance intermediaries? And expect that those expectations are going to grow over time. And then finally, as I mentioned before, I think one of the biggest things is integrating that data and the communication. So it's no longer just making sure that we have a toolbox talk at the beginning of the day and that everybody's on the same page and we're off and running. There's a breadth and depth of detail now behind all of the processes that we have. We need to integrate those in terms of how we work and the systems that we use and make sure that they're synchronized. There's also rework, not only in the real world, but a lot of the times it happens on paper, right? The schedule, the budget. And so those inefficiencies and the delays that they cause of decision making are really consequential. And I think increasingly so going forward.
That's a lot to digest, but I also really like a few key points you made there. I think one thing that I'm reflecting on as I sit here, my project manager brain never turns off. I always think about, where and how am I implementing and what am I implementing to actually make my day easier, right? Or have our product be, easier and also equals a better product that we can hand over to our client more effectively, more efficiently. Along
Yeah.
that train of thought, what would be your final piece of advice? Because it can kind of be overwhelming. There's so many different tools. AI is exploding. You never know which way to turn. What would your parting advice, if there's one thing they took away today, be for sharing that you could share with leaders and project managers as they look to integrate technology into their work? Like, what's the take
Yeah.
home on all this new shiny stuff?
Yeah. So I think of technology, I think technology should be treated like any of your job site tools, right? You should have that expectation. Now, I know in reality, it's a lot more complex than that. But let's go back to how successful companies have evolved in our own industry, right? So if you look at some of the leading general contractors, they pick something to self-perform, right? Something that they can optimize cost on or they can reduce risk on. So a lot of GCs will do their own contract or their concrete work, or they'll do their own structural steel work, and they create an expertise around that. I would say the same thing for this technology. So pick, some highly leveraged or high value workflows. Really look to optimize and become excellent at those. And it depends on what type of projects you're delivering. But I think if you treat it like, well, if I'm a GC or a trade, what things am I going to self-perform? What things I'm going to contract out? Think of that in terms of your processes. What should we be really excellent at, or what things are really critical to the success of our business? Get really good at that. If you try to automate everything all at once, it's going to be a lot to handle. It could get complex and confusing. It actually could be, you could experience diminishing returns. So, like I said, I kind of bring it down to a practical nature. What are the couple of key workflows? Pick one, pick two, maybe three, and then really optimize those, get good at those, create, as I mentioned before, a culture of embracing optimization and technology and integration around those. And then once you've mastered that, then you can pick off the next one, right? And just go one at a time.
Baby steps.
Exactly.
I love it. So, our final question we always like to ask, we call this our PM pitfalls question. What do you think the biggest PM pitfall that you've identified is out in our industry, and how would you recommend overcoming it or avoiding it for other project managers listening?
Yeah, I look at as a technologist, I think it really does for me come back to bridging that digital to physical. I see a lot of times, especially in larger organizations, you have an IT organization or even very senior PMs who are looking at the overall process, and they end up managing to the plan instead of reality. So a PM pitfall for me is make sure that we're keeping in mind that wisdom element. How are we taking what we're doing and making it a reality? So beautiful schedules and dashboards don't deliver projects, right? This is a closed loop. What did we intend to happen? How do we provide that visibility? And what actually did happen? Talk to the people in the field, make sure that that vision, that strategy is a reality for the people on the job site doing the work. And, obviously making sure that progress, productivity, quality, and safety are a reality and they're not just a strategy.
That's all great. I think some of our listeners are going to get tired of me saying it, but at the end of the day, all the tools are great and helpful, but the people are a valuable, critical component.
All about the people, isn't it? Yeah, 100% agree with you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been super informative. Help break down some of the AI, where to start, what to do. And that's always, I feel like it's on everyone's top of mind. And it's always helpful to hear another viewpoint about what's out there and what's available and how we can implement it effectively.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aecpmpodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you all the best in your engineering project management endeavors.